Illinois has been bleeding residents taxed into submission and run by a governor who spent more time auditioning for president than actually doing his job. Over 420,000 people have left the state since 2020. Property taxes are crushing seniors. Crime is exploding. And J.B. Pritzker, the man who spent over $150 million of his own money to get elected, is now eyeing a third term. But there is a Republican in this race who's not a politician. He didn't come from a think tank or a sheriff's office. He came from the streets of Illinois, built a fuel and gaming empire spanning 800 and more locations across the state, and watched firsthand as Pritzker's administration tried to kneecap his business at every single turn. And he's calling Illinois a state of take, and he wants to make it a state of make. Joining me now is Republican candidate for Illinois Governor Rick Heidner. Rick, welcome to the Next News Network. I want to just jump right into it. Tell us where you came from. What drives you? Because most candidates for governor, they've got a political resume. Yours is entirely different.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today, Gary. I really appreciate it. I really come from very, very little means. When I was 1 and my brother was 2, my mother and father got divorced, and my father left and we never saw him again. So my mother was a maid and a hostess, and she never remarried, and she raised us by herself. My brother and I started helping her when we were 6 and 7 years old with several paper routes, 2 before school, 2 after. We cleaned the apartment building that we were in to get her $20 off the rent. It would always be 2 weeks' pay to pay 1 month's rent. That was all the way till we were 16. So I really understand what it is to have nothing and really struggle. And I realized at a very young age that you had to have your own chance to go to college or anything. So again, just work tirelessly. When I was 11, we moved to King Arthur Apartments, and my brother and I became full-time maintenance people while we went to school. And again, at 16 and a half years old, I had my own business.
Wow.
With that, today, again, from coming with, starting with absolutely nothing, we have 4 major businesses. I have, as a family, we have over 800 employees. We own a fuel distribution company. We own Ricky Rockets Fuel Centers. We own Gold Rush Gaming. That has about 735 customers, locations. And we also are in the real estate business, and I've accumulated about 280 buildings in 12 states with 800 tenants. So what I want to tell you about that is when I look at Illinois, or I look at any people in Illinois, wherever you're at in your life, I probably can resonate with about 90-something% of those, whether you're a single parent where your children are suffering with you, whether you're somebody paying rent, whether you're somebody that has to, you're in business and you're paying rent, whether you're a real estate owner and you have to pay these outrageous real estate taxes.
Let's explore that, because, your story really is a Cinderella story. You've built businesses all over Illinois. You mentioned Ricky Rockets, Gold Rush Gaming. You got Prairie State Energy. Walk us through what you told the mayor of Midlothian, the mayor of Kankakee, and how your model actually works to revitalize a community.
Yeah, so that's what I want to do for Illinois. So I like giving these examples because people think that when you get some tax money that you actually create, that you're taking tax money from the residents. It's not the way it happens. So in Midlothian, for example, there was 6 acres on the corner, 147th and Cicero, and it was completely empty for 11 years. It was an old car dealership. It was knocked down, concrete all over, weeds coming out of the ground. Next to it was another 15 acres that the city owned that was completely the same way. So I went to Midlothian. I said, listen, I went to the people of Midlothian too, by the way, because I actually had a town hall meeting, and I told them, listen, I'll build a Ricky Rockets Fuel Center. I will put a 11,000 square foot strip center next to it and put 6 or 7 tenants in it. But I need a little help. I need to get these certain licenses so I could have a car wash, so I could have gasoline, so I could have, I'm in the gaming business, so I can't own any businesses with gaming in it, but I can own the buildings. So I always like to say I reinvest my gaming money in these communities. And I had spent 20 something million dollars on that project, but I needed a credit of about $3 million. So what I did is I asked for part of my real estate taxes back, not all of them, but not only am I generating real estate taxes, I'm generating sales tax and gaming tax and fuel tax and all kinds of taxes. So all I asked for was part of that back to add up to $3 million over 20 years. So if I pay $300,000 in real estate taxes, I get $150,000 back. But in the meantime, I'm creating all these other taxes, not to mention 100 jobs just on that site or more. And then what happened was once I started building, immediately the town was able, and the land next to me was empty for 15 years. Mine was empty for 11. And they were immediately able to sell it. And that generates tremendous tax. A car dealership went there and some other businesses, another hundreds of jobs. And I might create $1 million in tax on my property a year, and I get $150,000 back. And this is what we're going to have to do with businesses.
It doesn't seem like a small ask. It seems like something simple. With respect to what you're planting your flag in one location, automatically there's a revitalization in that area, like you mentioned, and then the tax revenue is growing, the tax base is growing. Everybody wins. So what ended up happening there?
What ended up happening there is I was able to accomplish that, and everything is flourishing. Every square foot of both my property and the property next to me is full. And the town couldn't be happier. And then the same thing in Kankakee, 57 and 17th Street. Highway 57 is a barrier. West of 57 of Kankakee was completely developed. East of 57, because it's a barrier, wasn't developed. There was a Kmart there on 11 acres, completely decimated also, closed for a dozen years. The roof completely caved in inside of the building. And I went to Kankakee and I did the same thing. I got a little bit of tax incentive. They were getting no one wanted to go on the east side of 57 because, even all my competitors and people I knew said, Rick, don't do it. You're never going to be successful there. Once again, built a Ricky Rockus Fuel Center with a beautiful car wash, got 100 truck parking spaces. I got Pilot Flying J to partner with me there. We got Wendy's there. We've got a cannabis store there. And now all of a sudden they're getting a lot of activity to the east of 57, and the mayor and the community couldn't be happier. In fact, they gave us an award for Developer of the Year last year to my family. And again, I'm reinvesting some of my, gaming money, and I'm reinvesting in Illinois. We spent about $250 million, rebuilding places in Illinois for the communities. Same thing in Belvedere, same thing in Hickory Hills. Any of these mayors you could call, Hoffman Estates.
Well, Rick, clearly, you see where there's a problem and an opportunity, you step in, you fix it, and you win. And let's
win for everyone.
Everybody wins, right? Right. The house always wins, and in this case, clearly we want the house, being Illinois, to win. So let's pull this back. Let's take your entire model that you built in all these different locations, and let's look at it from the macro scale at the state of Illinois. How can you apply this same logic to the state of Illinois? Because, people are leaving in droves, Rick, and we don't want to see the state. So, look, when people leave, we lose congressional seats, we lose influence in Washington. It's a disaster. So, let's pull this out and take a look at the whole picture of the state of Illinois. How does your solution-oriented approach to these specific locations apply to the state?
Yeah, so again, I've generated just tens of millions of dollars in tax dollars. And I want to do this for the state by bringing businesses back into Illinois. Let's say we get a manufacturer to come here, 200-300 jobs, building a $50 million factory or something. We're going to have to give them some of the tax money that they generate as an incentive, as they generate it, back to them. but we're still way ahead. We get those 200-300 jobs. Those same people now will buy homes. Those same people will eat at the local restaurants. It's such simple math. It's so easy to do. It's really just common sense. Unfortunately, who we have as our governor now and who's in place right now, they don't have any real business sense, okay? What I see them doing, pushing out the biggest companies in our state and
Yes, they are.
leaving, and probably the most hurtful one for me was Ken Griffin. I bring him up all the time because he gave hundreds of millions of dollars to charity. So besides his brilliant business mind and the unbelievable tax dollars that he paid, I mean, he gave away more money than he paid in taxes, hundreds of millions to our community.
And now Citadel is
1,100 of the
gone.
best
It's gone.
jobs. Citadel's gone. Boeing's gone. Caterpillar's gone. I heard just lately McDonald's is leaving. I mean, you're driving everyone out. You're bringing no one in. And now look at our Bears. There's a perfect one. I'd love to give you that example if you have enough time.
Yeah, we can. I want to get to the Bears. Don't jump ahead of me because I do want to talk about the Bears. And I do want to touch base because, I was at your home. Donald Trump Jr. You've hosted. I was there at that event. You've had Eric Trump, even Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I was able to attend that event. And that's in fact where I met you for the first time. So how did all that come about? And what did you take away from those conversations about the direction of the country? Because clearly you're operating at a level that's, right next to the president. So you're right there with the family. Tell me about some of those conversations you had with the family.
Well, with all three of them, but mostly with Donald Jr. and with Eric, they were so gracious in my home. And, I was told that Donald would be in and out. Don Jr. would be in and out so quick, and he's so a matter of fact. And he really stayed for like 3.5 hours. He spent about 40 minutes in my library with my wife and my kids. And I told him the story of what happened to me here in Illinois and how really I was almost destroyed, all because of optics, okay? Because, I was falsely accused of something, and just because it might not look good for the governor, it was kill Rick Heidner, kill Rick Heidner, kill Rick Heidner. And literally went after my kids too. So, they encouraged me both. To be, I told them I was thinking that maybe some crazy idea I might think of doing this. And I really hadn't committed to it at all. And they really encouraged me that it would be a good thing. I have to tell you, when I look at our president, and I just think he's so brave. And then what happened to Charlie Kirk, after that, I was like, these people, these gentlemen, these men, they're so brave and they sacrifice so much. I can be brave too. It was a difficult decision, but
there's no question that
my heart and my soul made me do this.
Well, when you put you put yourself out there running for office at any level, it puts you right there in the crosshairs for all the attacks to come out, and and they're relentless. I've been covering politics for over 20 years, so I've seen it all. So my hat's off to you to have the courage just to even do it. But I do have to ask you about Darren Bailey. In 2022, he received Trump's endorsement, and clearly you're branding yourself as a Trump Republican. Have you reached out to President Trump for an endorsement? Has he responded?
Well, President Trump, I believe he knows I'm out here. I'm not one to bother as President Trump. If he wants to endorse me, I'm hoping he's listening to me.
Well, the White House monitors all of our feeds. They monitor all of our interviews. So this is going to be on the president's desk.
Well, this is wonderful then for me, because I can't tell you how much that I respect him. I can't tell you how much that I feel that him and I are so aligned. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate him, and I just think he's an absolute hero. So, but this is not the first time I'm saying it. I say this all the time. We're very like-minded. We're both businessmen. I want to be the businessman, the mini Donald Trump for Illinois. I think I can do it. I know I can do it. It's really common sense to me.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, there's not a lot of common sense out there.
Now,
And the other thing is,
mhm,
I want to let you know is
sure.
that another reason I ran is because when Pritzker said he was going to run for a third time, and I'm all about term limits, 2 term limits. This is the first thing I'm going to want when I go into office, at least for the governor. I think I'm going to be able to accomplish that very easily. With the other stuff, I can't tell you I'm going to be able to get term limits, but I'm going to convince all these legislators, because the first thing if they want to talk to me, the first thing I'm going to tell them we're going to talk about is term limits, at least for my position. And but when I looked at the playing field and I saw the candidates, and I said to myself, none of these people can beat J.B. Pritzker, and that's why big reason I went in.
Now, I have to address some of what the critics have been saying. They've gone after you for past donations to Democrats: Brandon Johnson, Tony Preckwinkle, Don Harmon. Now, I mean, it's we've seen Donald Trump do the exact same thing, but you're calling yourself a Trump Republican. Help our viewers understand why sometimes you gotta, donate to both parties.
I do a tremendous amount of business, and I'm going to tell you something. I think it's an absolute asset for me to be governor and to have the relationships that I've had on both sides. There's a lot of respect for me from all these politicians. I've talked with them, I've worked with them, I've built things in their communities. Both sides, like I said, I've literally had Democrats call me. I'm talking about politicians, and tell me they're so glad I'm running. They can't say anything, but they're voting for me in November. They can't help me now, but they're so happy. I'm telling you, our governor is not well respected, and he's definitely not well liked.
Well, I can certainly tell you that. Well, I'll save that joke for another day. Let's just put it that way. But I do need to ask you about the sanctuary status of Illinois. If you become governor one day, what does your policy on sanctuary status look like, and how will you work with the Trump administration and ICE to remove violent criminal aliens?
First day, I'm throwing it out. First day, I'm calling our federal government. I don't think I'll be able to call President Trump directly, but if he wants to congratulate me, I'm going to tell him to start sending ICE tomorrow and get these people out of our prisons, get them out of our jails. We're not allowed. The police are not even allowed to ask somebody that they have in custody if they're an illegal immigrant. They are not, if they know that this person is a murderer from Venezuela or anywhere else, they are not allowed to call ICE. They are not allowed to call the federal government. It is sickening. The biggest reason I ran is because I couldn't stand to see all these people getting hurt in our communities. It's sickening. And that the other thing's the Safety Act. I can't repeal that the first day, but I'm working on that. That's going away too. I want to give our police, I want to give our communities back to themselves, and I want to give the police back their power. I don't know if you know this or not, but they've actually changed the law in the last couple of years, where a policeman can be sued civilly by a criminal. If he takes someone down and he breaks their shoulder, the next thing you know, they call attorneys and they go after those policemen's house. And now Pritzker actually changed it so illegal immigrants can sue our policemen civilly. It's disgusting. How can a policeman do their job? A man that lives in a $250,000 house as a policeman serving us his whole life for 20 years now is vulnerable every single day of their life, and they have to live in fear. And can you imagine you've got a wife and kids and you have to worry about doing your job and maybe losing your house?
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
saying
demoralizing.
they shouldn't be accountable. They have to be accountable, but you can't make them vulnerable. And
Well,
I to say this. Do you know who you can't sue civilly?
Who?
You can't sue the governor. You can't sue the governor. I can't sue the governor for what happened to me personally. I can't sue him one-on-one.
Unbelievable. Well, I mean,
It is
just
unbelievable.
that law
It's
alone, it
sickening.
demoralizes our law enforcement, does make them vulnerable. When they're operating in an official capacity, they should have that immunity from,
And
civil
protection.
recourse and the protection. So, when you get into the
They don't
governor's
have it.
office, I want to ask you, and I'll bring up the question that my son asked you last week too about freezing taxes. But I want to ask you, this is a question your critics are going to raise, and I want to give you the chance to address it directly. As governor, you would be appointing the Illinois Gaming Board. Now, these are the same regulators that your Gold Rush gaming business has had run-ins with under Pritzker. How would you handle that? Would you recuse yourself from those appointments?
Well, I probably will just completely step away from my gaming business. And I have been doing some things even before I ran to start stepping away from that. So there will definitely be changes. And I would like to be a part of that because I don't think there's anybody in the entire business that knows all of that and understands it more than I do. And I don't mind stepping away from it. And I'm already, been looking at getting a strategic partner and becoming much less of a somebody in that industry. But whatever I have to do, it'll be done properly. It won't be a blind trust because that's the only one that's blind. That J.B. Pritzker thinks is blind is the people of Illinois. I don't believe that. Can I swear?
Whatever you want, sir.
I don't believe that shit at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's foolish, but I promise you it'll do it the right way. And,
Now, I do want to address the elephant in the room. Most recent polling shows Darren Bailey about 57%. You're at 29%. There's a huge chunk of undecided candidates still, that are ready to make a choice. The primary is March 17th. What is the path to get those undecided and perhaps pull some of those percentage points away from Bailey?
well, a couple of things. Again, I don't believe Darren Bailey has any chance at all to go against Pritzker. If you get me in a room with J.B. Pritzker, he's going to have a real problem because I am the person that is affected every day by everything that he has done and does. And he knows it. In fact, he's working hard he does not want me to be the Republican, candidate for going against him as governor. They're funneling money over to Ted Dombrowski, trying to split the vote that's not left, that's left out there. Obviously name recognition is my problem. I've spent some of my own money. I've been able to raise some money. I haven't taken any Democrats' money, unlike what my competitors have been funneled in the past and right now. And I won't, okay? And I don't pay for people's endorsements, and I won't. And this is the type of thing, if people could just go online and just look me up, there's a lot of information. You said earlier, what I am really is called the American dream, okay? And
That's a Cinderella story. There's no question about it.
yes, and there was an episode on the American Dream with Eric Roberts that was done 4 or 5 years ago on me. It's really wonderful if somebody wants to take a look at that. It's on my website.
I saw it. It was
a
one of the first pieces of media I saw that your campaign put out. It was beautiful.
Quintessential Barrington did a 20-year anniversary, and I had no intentions of running when that came out. That was not for that. They wanted to do it on me, and I made them put my Duchess on the cover, or I wouldn't do the interview because she had just passed away in May 22nd, and they came to me in June or July, and I said, you know what, I'll do this if you put my and if you read that article, it's actually an article of appreciation. I made sure it was put that way because I wanted to thank the people in my life that helped get me here. And it wasn't anything that was supposed to be braggadocious or anything. It was me saying thank you because anybody that thinks they can do this, unless you inherit it all, obviously, you can do this on your own, you just can't. But it's a lifetime of hard work, just so you know. I've been an insatiable worker. And if you watch the American Dream episode, I did that because they said, Rick, is there a message that you'd like to tell people? And I said, you know what, I do have a message. And I say it at the very end of that 5.5 minutes.
Now, Rick, my son was really excited to meet you just last week, and I remember he came up and my son was really curious about your position to freeze taxes, and you had a conversation with him. Let's have a conversation with Illinois. What does that mean to freeze taxes?
So when I get into office, another of the very first things I'm going to do is I want to say, and I want to make it so that we cannot increase any taxes. There's no reason to increase any taxes at all. What I'd like to do then is go department by department by department by department and evaluate and pretty much audit each department. Now, I want to let you know that there's actually rules that they won't let you look, which is so ridiculous. But we're going to look. And I've had an accountant since I was 17 years old for the last 48 years. And his name is Bert. And I said to Bert, because he's so efficient and he's been driven so much by the politics and what's going on in our country and in our state. And I said, Bert, he's older than me and he's ready to really do something with his office. And I said, Bert, I says, will you come with me and help me? Will you help me do this? I says, will you be willing to sell your business and come and help me? He says, Rick, I'll give my business away. I said, don't do that. It's worth a lot of money. But so people like this are going to come and help me go through every single department and see where all the waste is. We went from $37 billion budget to a $56 billion budget since J.B. Pritzker's been in office. It's ridiculous. What I want to do is make it so we can't increase any taxes. I'm never going to approve anything like that till we go through every single department, get rid of the waste, get rid of I'm sure there's things that are going on that shouldn't be, and fix all that. Then again, let's remember, I want to bring business and increase just by the taxes we have. By doing more business, we're going to generate a lot more tax. There'll be no reason to increase anything. And then once we get both those things done, we'll actually be able to decrease taxes. But I want to let you know it's not going to be easy. These people that have been in government for this long have made it. It's a rigged system. It's a rigged, blind system. And it's not going to be that anymore. It's not going to be that way anymore. I have to tell you, I've seen, I say something in the last 2 days. I want to say it to you, and you'll be the first one that hears it. The Constitution is supposed to be for the people. Well, let me tell you what these people have done that are in politics. They've made the Constitution for the politicians. Mm-hmm. I'm not here for that. I don't want anything from anyone. I want to get in there. I want to fix all this, and then I want to leave and I want to retire.
Well, I hope that if there's one tax you can get pulled back on, it's that gas tax, which nobody even realizes what it's doing to our gas prices. But speaking of, these things that are hidden.
I want to let you know that's 85 cents a gallon here in Illinois. We actually went from number 2 worst in the country to number 3. Michigan just beat us by 2 cents. Wow. But we have it so it's a cost of living increase every single year automatically. It's just absolute insanity. And then you got to remember our cities and our cities around here, Chicago, all these municipalities, they add tax onto that. Mm-hmm. So there's even more than the 85 cents.
Okay, last question. You bring up Chicago. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. They're talking about Indiana. You said Illinois should help keep them. What does the deal look like if you are governor to keep the Chicago Bears in Chicago or Arlington?
Well, I like Arlington Heights, okay? To me, 326 acres, it's a city inside of a city. And by the way, the Bears have been renting for the last 100 years. I think as a businessman, they deserve to own their own property. But that 326 acres isn't just a Superdome where we'll get the Super Bowl, which will generate hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue when we get the Super Bowl. It'll be concerts. It'll be all kinds of WWF and all different things. But it's also so much larger. We'll have hotels there. We'll have fuel centers. Maybe a Ricky Rockets, you never know. There's going to be restaurants and bars, and there'll be hotels, there'll be condominiums, there'll be offices, generating thousands and thousands of jobs. So this is one of the biggest debacles I've ever seen. 3 years, they wouldn't cooperate or talk to them about anything with this. They wouldn't give them anything. They'd stand there and tell them they have to pay $523 million or whatever if they want to leave Soldier Field, because that's how much we owe they're renting. They're obligated to pay their lease. They're not obligated to pay the state's mortgage. So now 3 years later, what happens? Now Indiana's opened up, and now we've opened up Pandora's box. It'll cost us 1.5 times more to try to keep them now. Again, they're going to generate tremendous taxes, and we just have to give some of it back. They always only wanted the infrastructure money. We need to help them with that. There's such a path. We could have had this done in weeks, not years. And instead, now we have to compete with Indiana, which, by the way, is a big competitive thing. And what does J.B. Pritzker do? Because, he has the most expensive advisors in the world. He had two choices. He could have went back and said, folks, listen, I'm going to make a decision because we have to keep the bears. And if it takes us 20 years to pay for this, then so be it. They're going to generate the tax money. Or he could have blamed it on the citizens of Illinois. And what did he do? That's exactly what he did. His advisors told him to blame us for losing the bears or potentially losing them because we don't want to pay and we don't want to, contribute. A horrible, horrible decision they made him say, I think. And I want to keep the bears.
Okay, now before you go, your closing statement to the audience. What's the pitch? And this is your final thought.
Yes, I ask that you look me up. I look up all the candidates, see everything you see about us, and so you know who we are. It's rick4illinois.com for me. And just know, folks, I'm doing this for all the right reasons. I have no alternative motive. I just want to go in there. I want to do the best. I want to have people safe. I want to give the police back their authority. I want to fix our judicial system. I want to grow Illinois and stop it from being a state of take, and make it into a state of make. I know how to do this, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it for nothing. I'm going to take my salary, so you know. I'm not going to refuse it. I'm actually going to take it, and I'm going to donate it to charity.
Wow.
So you know, I don't want the salary. I just want to go in there. I want to do this. I really only want to do it for one term. If I have to stay longer, I will. But I think I can do this in 4 years. So, know that about me too. This is for me to give back. This is not for me to take.
Rick, thank you so much for joining us and taking time from your schedule on the campaign trail. And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too. So Rick Heidner, he came to the race a little bit late, self-funded though, and with a resume built not in Springfield, but on the streets of Illinois. He's created jobs, revitalized blighted communities, and generated tax dollars in places politicians had written off for decades. He has seen firsthand what Pritzker's administration does to businesses that don't play ball. And now he's asking the voters of Illinois to let him apply that same builder's instinct to the entire state. Now, whether you agree with him or not, the case he's making is very simple. Illinois doesn't need another politician. It needs someone who knows how to make the numbers work. The question is whether Republican primary voters believe that he is the one to take on J.B. Pritzker in November. The primary is March 17th, so you better make sure you're out there and vote. If you want to find out more, go to rick4illinois.com.